my name is Brenda Navarez, and today I will be teaching you 6 techniques to oil pastels. For this lesson plan, you will need a variety of colors of oil pastels. I will be using Portfolio brand, as well as a pencil and eraser for the sketching process, a Sharpie and a black marker in case you want to get certain details of the poster, some engraving tools. I will be using a plastic fork. I sometimes cut off bits of that plastic fork to get certain more details precisely. Or you could also use a bobby pin, but you could use whatever you have in your household that could either hatch or etch into the oil pastel drawing that you desire to make a design. You would also need a ruler and some tape. Both of these are going to be used for stencil designs for whatever image you're trying to depict, but I also use a tape to hold on the paper. The paper we will be using is a 9x12 poster paper. For this poster paper, you would want it to be able to hold on to the oil pastels as well as make it easier to blend in. And last but not least, I will be using pure baking soda as sort of my still life to reference onto the poster of what I'm going to make and make it into my own message. This is part 1 of oil pastel techniques. So what are the techniques to oil pastels? We have 6 techniques that are widely used. We have blending method, feathering, hatching, engraving, linear method, and pointillism. So to start off with, the blending method. The blending method consists of 2 or multiple colors. Usually we would like to use a lighter color compared to a darker color, such as, for example, a light blue and a darker blue. We like to start with the base color of the light blue, and then slowly we'll work in the darker blue into it. And then from there, you can always use a Q-tip or your finger to blend these in together. And that's how we do the blending method. The next method is feathering. Feathering consists of applying single or multiple colors in one direction. In this sort, we kind of want to go either linear, horizontal, or diagonal with feathering. It could go either way, but for here, we're gonna go diagonally towards our right side. The color we're gonna use is the yellow. And you can see how that kind of bleeds into one another, creating another color in between these two. The next method is hatching. With hatching, you kind of draw a series of parallel lines, each of them having like a kind of crossing or hatching method towards them. And from there, you could kind of build certain vibrancy within the colors. So for example, yellow and brown. You usually start with the darker or lighter color, whichever you prefer. I'm going to start with yellow first. Kind of have it go in one direction. I'm having this go towards the right hand side of the paper. And then for the brown color, we're going to have that go towards the left side. And from there, you could just build upon these. If you want it to go darker, you could have the brown color goes to the right side. And that kind of builds an intensity towards this side of the colors. One of the most interesting techniques for oil pastels is engraving. With engraving, you want to start with a lighter tone of a color, and then you get to do a darker tone on top. Just to experiment, we could do pink and dark purple. So we're gonna first build up the pink. You want this to be very, very dark. And then from there, we'll then build into just the dark purple here. Keep in mind that when you're mixing these 2 colors, you'll get not the exact same dark purple as you would see here, but more of a lighter magenta color. Then with your sharp tool, I would prefer to use this kind of tool broken off from the tip of one of the forks. you can draw more detailed designs, such as lettering. And from there, you would show up the lighter color that you drew in the bottom. And this is really helpful when you want to draw words or letterings within your drawing, or you could do crazier designs. Like squiggles, the lines, or even negative spacing with hatching as well. The next method is linear method. Linear method is more of drawing bold strokes with lines with the sky, such as blue, ultramarine, blue, and violet, from what I did here. But you could also draw curved strokes with a contrast of colors. For this one, I'm going to be using orange, purple, and pink. This is to get an array of different patterns or colors of strokes. You kind of have them facing horizontal. And then you build upon by having the colors and fill in the gaps that you have. And last but not least is pointillism. Pointillism is drawing dots of different colors, densities, and sizes. So for here, I'm going to use a dark blue, a green, and then yellow. And from here, you kind of just step into the paper. And this often the time leads to different kind of variety of dots. And this builds also a lot of texture with some of the oil pastel kind of coming off of the crayon. You can add more intensity to certain areas. Note this is a very loud process. And then you can kind of degrade it towards one side, adding sort of like a pointillism gradient effect, kind of like the blending method. And these are the methods 2 and techniques of oil pastels. Welcome to the final part of this video. We will now create our poster that advocates for people of color. This can either be done by presenting information or a message of inequalities or racism that are within our own neighborhood, school, and personal experiences. This poster will consist of 3 criteria. You must have a colorful background using more than 2 colors. You must use an iconic product. For example, I'm going to be using Arm & Hammer's Pure Baking Soda. And change the message to fit your own narrative. And you must use more than 2 oil pastel techniques. For the previous video, we used the techniques as stated: blending method, feathering, hatching, engraving, linear method, and pointillism. And last but not least, note that the majority of the poster should be colored and drawn in oil pastel. First, you will want to sketch out your poster. For this process, we will be using a pencil, some assistance by some stencils that I find around my house, such as a DVD player or a roll of tape, to help with the circular and box shape of the package. As well, have a ruler, and eraser in hand. Again, draw very lightly so that you won't create harsh lines that might bleed through the oil pastels. So note that when I'm drawing up the messages onto this poster, I'm changing a lot of the wording here. Where it would say Arm & Hammer, I'm using Arm & Arm. And for my plan, I'm going to use the Arm & Arm with both black and brown to show an advocacy for both sides of Black and Brown Lives Matters here. And instead of having the standard of purity, I will now write "We stand together." just to match up with the arm in arm message. Next, for my message right here in the middle, instead of having pure baking soda, America's #1 trusted baking soda brand, I will have for black and brown lives in the center to kind of copy this message right here. And just for the bottom here, I'm gonna have lives, and in the corner here in the center, near the corner of the image, I'll have hundreds fight for equality. Now, just to add some dimension to this box, we're gonna give it a bit more 3D here in the top. Kind of give it that box-shaped lid. So now that we're done with the sketching process, we can now begin the coloring using the oil pastels. So for the first off, I will clean up some of my edges here in the middle of the circle. And now I will start beginning to color the entire piece. So the main colors for this brand, I want to keep the orange, the red, and the dark blue here. So first we're going to start off with the writing here center, and this is where I want to try using the stenciling technique that we learned, which is the engraving. And kind of want to start with having this all white first. So we're going to just paint a really deep layer of white on top of this circle here. And on top of that, I'm gonna use the red oil pastel. Now that we're done with that, we will take a point of a fork. You could use anything that you like, such as a bobby pin or a needle, but I'm gonna use a fork so that I could get more precision within the wording. And from here, we will now start with the orange of the base of the color. For this part, I'm going to do a bit of feathering and linear method by combining both yellow, orange, and a bit of red. So I first start off with the lightest color. You always like to start off with the lightest color. And I'm going to start off with yellow. So with feathering, I'm just going to kind of go in one direction. And I like to go towards the diagonal corner. From there, I'm going to then go with the orange. Just to kind of clean up the corners here of the box, I'm going to use the red to kind of hold those strong corners. And for here, I'm going to use some cross hatching. Next step is I'm going to fill in this color right here in the middle. I'm going to use a small white piece of pastel to kind of blend in the colors for this hand on the left. Since I kind of want to emphasize the hands here in the middle, I'm going to take a black pen to kind of trace the hand so it doesn't get lost in the oil pastel. Just to emphasize a bit in the middle, I'm going to take brown oil pastel to kind of give a circle here in the middle of the hands united. Now to work on the bottom font here, it's a dark blue color, so I'll take my dark blue oil pastel and begin working on the lettering for this part. And just for the small text here, I'm gonna use the black pen again. So just because the lettering in the bottom wasn't dark enough, I went over it with a Sharpie instead of a pen, because the pen was kind of battling with the pastel when trying to mark onto the paper. So just to finish the main focus here on the poster, I'm just going to pick a bit of the top and make that a little bit darker and consume the edges of the box. Again, I'm going to be using cross hatching and just a really dark push onto the border. Now for the background, I'm going to use a bit of engraving and hatch making to kind of make a sort of border around this entire frame. And within the opposite direction, I'm going to use a yellow tone color. From the inside of this, I'm going to use a very baby blue color. But I'm going to first start off with coloring the entire outside of it in a white color with oil pastel. Now from there, do we get more intricate designs? I'm going to switch my tool to a bobby pin instead. And there we go. We have our poster. So this is our final poster. It reads, "Arm in arm, we stand together for Black and brown lives. Hundreds fight for equality." And this is how I play onto this original box of Arm & Hammer's baking soda. And I hope that this inspires you to create your own posters that advocates and brings awareness to social issues for people of color and within your own community and of society as well. And you could kind of take whatever you like to create with this poster, as long as you play on certain kind of logos or iconic images that you see on an everyday basis, such as like restaurants, kitchen products, or even toys or whatever. But I hope this inspires you to make your own poster at home. And thank you for coming to my class today. Adios.